So we've all heard that we should be avoiding high fructose corn syrup in our diet. However, the majority of us out there probably don't register all the reasons why. For week number 6 of the Aesthetix Better Body Challenge, I'm going to challenge you to avoid high fructose corn syrup and its derivatives and explain, number 1, why it should not be part of any human diet, and number 2, the sneaky way that food companies will actually have you eating it without you even being aware. So let's first explain what HFCS, high fructose corn syrup, is. If your gut and your ears tell you that that doesn't sound like something naturally occurring in nature, you would be right. It's a heavily processed sweetener, which is a chemical derivative of cornstarch, majority of which comes from genetically modified corn crops. This chemical sweetener contains more fructose than regular corn syrup, which is also bad for you to begin with. Last week, we talked about links between foods like peanuts and corn with gastrointestinal cancers, and the health profile of GMO corn is further questionable. And it's found in many processed foods, not limited to yogurt, soda, crackers, sauces, and desserts. So not only does the rise of the use of the sweetener throughout our country's history parallel the rise in obesity and type 2 diabetes over the last few decades, but studies have also linked it to its contribution to heart disease, which is a no-brainer, as well as cancer and dementia. More recent studies have actually shown how sugar anatomically shrinks the size of the brain. Duh, but that's for another day. As health practitioners, we are seeing a marked incline in type 2 diabetes in our youth and younger generations. I don't doubt for a moment that HFCS is a strong linking factor. One of the ways that high fructose corn syrup makes you fat is through hormonal influence. HFCS influences your body's leptin and insulin, promoting fat storage and increasing your appetite rather than turning it off. As a result, you become a munching machine and your body becomes really good at storing fat. Not something I want to be good at. No thanks. So if you'd like to dig deeper into the science, you'd also find that HFCS is biochemically reactive as opposed to stable. If you're going to sweeten your food, at least use a stable source of sweetener that is not linked to cellular damage, like honey, syrup, even coconut sugar. So what's the bottom line? Avoid HFCS at all costs. Okay, so how do we avoid this in our foods? It's not like we can make everything from scratch, so how do we do this? As I've encouraged you before, read your labels. But don't just read your labels. Pick them apart, dissect them. Food companies know that their consumers are getting wiser as the science supporting the dangers of additives used emerge. So what do? They get more creative. While the FDA requires them to label their products, it also allows them to call certain products by other names, which you might not recognize or you might think sound harmless or even natural. Let me ask you if you've ever heard of HFCS 90. Not ringing a bell? Well, there's a reason for that. Nobody actually calls it by its name. Suspicious, yeah? Well, HFCS 90 contains around 45% more fructose than regular high fructose corn syrup. This equates to over 9 times more fructose than the average fruit. We all know that fructose naturally occurs in fruit, but the level of fructose in products containing HFCS and HFCS 90 are by no means naturally occurring. Moderation, America, moderation. Interestingly, when HCFS 90 is used in a product, the intentional misnomer fructose or fructose syrup is typically written on the ingredient list to make the product sound more natural, which could not be farther from the truth. Take a look at your cereal, granola bars, yogurts. Do you see HFCS 90 on the label in disguise as fructose? Those lies. They taste so good, right? Well, this is all a form of marketing, but here's the good news. Now that you know better, you don't have to stomach it. Read your labels, break them apart. Do your research on food label ingredients just like you would active ingredients in a cosmeceutical skin product. But for week number 6 and from here on out, do not eat anything containing high fructose corn syrup, especially if you want to feel better and feel great. Stay healthy, my friends. So we've all heard that we should be avoiding high fructose corn syrup in our diet. However,